and some of that feedback that we were hoping to hear about as far as family perspective. So we've got a presenter for that. We're going to have a mini series right after the summer break, so to kick off the start to school. So for 2 months back to back, we're going to be doing some work around self-awareness with a presenter, and also the invisible backpack. And that's also going to lead us into the year where we're going to have a presenter come and work with us through the neurosequential model in the education setting. And then we also will have a presentation this year from ASU. They're going to come in and speak on several of their evidence-based programs that they have for students and families. So we've got a really great lineup, and I think that we tried to highlight and capture all of the requests that we got in January as far as topics or areas of interest. And a lot of those areas will also be like interwoven into some of those other presentations when we talked about culture and different cultural views on mental health and their approach to getting support. That will be likely part of the neurosequential model presentation that happens over the course of a couple of these meetings. So we're pretty excited about the lineup, and next steps are going to be just to continue to get messaging out, make sure that the schools across the state are aware, so that teachers, educators, and other community partners can join us and participate in those. So we're very excited. All right. So with that, I think I'm going to see, before we get into our presentation today, Angie, did you have any updates for the group?
Hello, happy March 1st to everyone. Up here in Kingman, we are in literally a whiteout. There's about 4.5 inches of snow on the ground. And being born and raised in Wisconsin, I did not plan on, having to drive in the snow to get my son from school, but here we are. The crazy weather that we've been having lately. We have lots of updates. Our first quarterly consortium meeting was scheduled for February 16th. However, we had to postpone it. It is now March 16th. I will put the link in the chat. Andy Fetzner from Origins Training is going to come and talk about trauma-informed organization and the importance of having core values. We also have our save the date for the Trauma Sensitive School Symposium. That is the school symposium that ASU puts on. We are partners, and this year Arizona School Board Association has come on as a partner also. That date is June 6th. As a reminder, that is a no-cost symposium for educators across Arizona. And then also we just our Resilience Coordinating Council just released a Creating Resilient Schools one-pager. That is from the feedback that we had received from our educator focus groups that we did last year. That really highlights the areas of need, priority focus, those pieces. And we are doing a funding webinar for schools on giving them information of how to get funding for trauma sensitive practices within their schools across the state. So we created a brand new page on our website. It is Resilient Schools, and I will put that in there also. You can find the link to the PDF of the one pager that you are free to share the link to the funding webinar. And then there's numerous other pieces, right? The Vitalists Trauma Sensitive Schools report that they did in 2019, the links to Maricopa County Superintendent. If you remember last year, they did a stress survey. This year, they're doing a teacher retention survey. And the stats that are coming out of there are pretty indicative of what we already know, but it's always great when we're having these conversations with others, right? Of like, here are the stats. This is what it kind of looks like in Maricopa County. So, and I will send all of this out also in the follow-up email that I'll do tomorrow with the recording of this meeting.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Angie. Does anyone else have any updates that they wanted to share with the group, resources, information, or events coming up? Great, I'm not hearing any. If you think of something throughout the time of the meeting today, feel free to put it in the chat or at the end, try to catch us before we say goodbye, so that you can share those. So with that, I am going to introduce our presenter today. So our presenter is actually Lynn Daniel. So she is going to be presenting and sharing with us today around self-care, different approaches, applications, and Lynn, I'm going to leave it to you to introduce yourself a little bit more in depth, and let me know how you want, or if you need any support as far as questions and how you want to field those. So take it away. I think you're still on mute, Lynn.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
have a presentation that is, I don't know if I need to share it with you, upload it with you, but we'll try it, and then if we can navigate it.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Lynn Daniel, PhD, EDS. I am an educator, an author, and small business owner. Forgive my printer. I have documents. Sometimes they have their own mind. They come out when they want to. So I just let it do its thing. But I am an educator. I teach English 12 at West Point High School in the Tolleson Union High School District. I love teaching. Actually, I've been teaching for 38 years total. So yeah, I need to figure it out. I need to make a decision. But so that's what I do with my day. And then in the evenings, I run my small business enterprise, which is Lynn Daniel Consulting. And I am the self-care evangelist. And in that role, in that capacity, I educate, teach, and preach about the importance of self-care. And self-care is more than manicures and massages, you all. There are so many important components to self-care. And I'm going to just start off by saying, you can check out the International Self-Care Foundation's website, because there you will see how in-depth this topic really is. Self-care looks at a lot of facets of life. Even, yes, it looks at things that we do to make ourselves feel comfort and comfortable, but it also looks at like our level of readiness to understand healthcare literature and the information that we receive from our healthcare providers. Like when we get that information and we go home, do we really understand what it's saying to us, right? So our healthcare literacy. It also involves us being able to assess our risks. So do we take risks? Like when I say that, I mean like risky behaviors with maybe taking medications and maybe drinking alcohol with the medications, or maybe overeating or doing things that increase our chances of not being well, of being ill, right? So if you check out the International Self-Care Foundation, it's isfglobal.org, you will find a wealth of information. So I am going to see if I can share my screen. Let's see. Yep, here it is. Okay, so I was trying some new technology today on Canva. So Canva can take your doc. Y'all, I'm a teacher, so and I'm a teacher nerd when it comes to all this new educational tech. So Canva can take your doc and transform it into a presentation. So I was having so much fun with this. So here we go. Okay, so I'm going to talk about self-care leadership. That's the perspective I'm taking. So prioritizing your self-care, not just for you, but for your family, for your community, for your organization. Okay, so that you're taking on that role of being the model and the leader and the cheerleader, like encouraging your loved ones, your extended family, your community, even your job, on how to become more informed on self-care. And forgive me if I'm not looking at directly at the lens. I don't know if I'm on the spectrum, and I'm not being silly when I say this, but I've been told that I do have characteristics. So, and I wasn't offended when I was told that. I just said thank you and just kept it moving. So forgive me if I don't look directly at the camera. It's just how I kind of am. Okay. Thank you all for understanding that. All right, so here's my introduction. You all, my name is Lynn Daniel, PhD, EDS, Educational Specialist. And I've already told you I'm an educator. I'm an author. I've written 2 books commercially, and I've written several articles and collaborated on several articles for like research, educational research. And I'm a small business owner and the self-care evangelist. So what is self-care? So self-care is when we take and prioritize our well-being, our education around well-being, and our actions around well-being. And that means your physical well-being, your spiritual well-being, your emotional and psychological well-being, and also your career choice, your whatever you do for your livelihood, manage your home, work on a job, run a business. That is a part of your self-care. Another thing regarding self-care is your ability to have communications. So how your ability to have those difficult conversations when necessary, your ability to set boundaries when necessary. All of these are components of self-care, okay? So it's vital for individuals to prioritize self-care for a well-rounded life. Self-care positively impacts your well-being by the choices that you make. So according to the International Self-Care Foundation and its 7 pillars, if you go to that website, you will see there are 7 pillars. And those 7 pillars break down every facet of your self-care. And they include, let me see if I can't pull that up for you all. Those 7, let's see here. Let me stop sharing and I'm going to see if I can pull it up so we can go through it together. The 7 pillars, they're dynamic, like. They really make it clear what is covered in self-care. Yes, nutrition is covered. Yes, it is. Exercising is covered. Yes, it is. Let's see. Here we go. See if I can share this with you all. Okay. Right here. Okay, here are the 7 pillars. And again, this is the isfglobal.org. And so knowledge and health literacy. And as you can see, if you look on this right-hand side, every pillar is explained in detail. So I highly recommend that you check out those pillars. And here on the graphic, it just gives you the category name, and then it gives you a little bit here underneath. And so knowledge and health literacy is you being able to Like when you go to the doctor and they, like when I go, I get like a plan, a self-care plan or health wellness plan. And so do you understand that that wellness plan is something that you should read and really adhere to and incorporate it in your daily life? So I talk to my students about metacognition, thinking about thinking, thinking about learning, being aware of how they learn. And I tell my students, hey, if you all aren't aware that you need to know this information, it goes right over your head because you don't realize you need to stop, get the information, and grab hold to it so you can use it later. So when you visit your doctor, when you go for your wellness checks, when you go to the ER or the quick check-in healthcare place, and you are seen and they tell you what to do, before you leave, they give you a document with all of this information on there. That's your wellness plan. And it's important to read that wellness plan and to be aware of what it is that you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be following some sort of regimen or taking medication for a period of time or doing something, right? And so that is a part of your knowledge in health literacy, being able to understand the basic health information and services that are needed to have you well, and to help you to make those decisions that you need to make. Okay, so pillar 2 is your mental well-being and self-awareness and agency. So this is having those numbers that are important to you. I know my friends and I joke about weighing ourselves, like, oh, I'm not going to weigh myself. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to, but those numbers are critical for various reasons. Weight is just one of the measures, but weight is an important measure. And so being mindful, like if we remove the emotion and the stigma or shame from these things, and we just look at them for what they are, their data points, they're pieces of very important information to help us have a full health picture of our wellness. And so weight is one of those measures. Blood pressure is another. Like when you get your blood work and you get all those numbers, those are things that need to be discussed with your doctor and clarify for you. So like if, for instance, there's something on a report that you don't fully understand, it is perfectly okay to ask for clarification and to advocate, and just say, hey, I don't quite understand what this means. Can you explain this? And most doctors will. If they won't, then that's your clue to get another doctor. But most doctors are, most healthcare providers are, especially current, in current times, they are advocates for wellness. Okay, so that is pillar 2, mental well-being, self-awareness, and agency. And then pillar 3 is your physical activity. So one of my enjoyable physical activities is bicycling. So I enjoy riding my bicycle when the weather is nice and not too cold or not too hot. And I like do these little challenges with myself and see if I can go longer in minutes, or if I can do a more rigorous trail or go uphill for a longer duration of time. And so it's just a fun way for me to get in some activity. Walking is another one that I enjoy, but there are so many of them. And physical activity is pillar 3 on the 7 pillars. Pillar 4 is eating healthy, having well-balanced meals, and just really being conscientious about that. Now, for transparency and for to give you context, so this has been a struggle for me. This area here, healthy eating, has been a struggle for me pretty much since I was like a teenager, when you first become body aware. And so when I was a young teenager, maybe, I don't know, in high school, early high school years, I was very active and I was very mindful and I ate healthily and was doing a very good job. And then I don't know what happened in my life or what caused me to like get off of that track, but I did. I got off of that track. And then later on, I got married. And when you have children, your body changes. And so for me personally, pillar 4 has been like prioritized. I have prioritized it because I have found it to be one of my areas of concern. And now that I will be 62 next week, I am seeing that I can't really play around with M&Ms and honey buns and things like that, because at my current age, those types of foods have more of a serious effect on my health. And so that's why I encourage people to look at healthy eating from the perspective of feeding the body nutritiously instead of from the perspective of, or in addition to, you know, most mindsets look at healthy eating as I want to look a certain way, which is okay. But from the health point, we look at the measures of our blood sugar and our blood pressure and those types of things. And so healthy eating can support us with that. Okay, so that's pillar 4. Okay, pillar 5, risk avoidance or risk mitigation. And this encourages us to do things to be safe in our usage of like alcohol, tobacco, taking our medications correctly, practicing safeness in our activities, and even using sunscreen. So that is pillar 5, risk avoidance or risk mitigation. Pillar 6, good hygiene, washing our hands, cleanliness, brushing our teeth, having our food clean, having our clothes clean, our homes clean, to minimize germs and the spread of diseases, especially during the colds and flu seasons. And then even with our pets, being mindful of what our pets, how they contribute to our wellness and our hygiene. And so helping our pets to have good hygiene as well. And then finally, pillar 7 is rational and responsible use of products and services. So this looks like mindfulness, knowing the dangers of certain things, medicines included, machinery or exposure to different elements and different types of, I'm thinking machinery. I can't think of another word. Maybe somebody can help me think of another word, but being mindful and aware of how we can become ill when we are introduced or in the presence of certain types of things. So yeah. All right. So you all, this is the 7 pillars of self-care from the International Self-Care Foundation. This is their website. I highly recommend that you check out this website because it is so packed with information. The self-care matrix is there. That matrix will show you the various levels of self-care, all the way from like your independence. You know, you're able to care for yourself, you manage your own self-care, all the way, you know, then there are varying degrees of when you engage healthcare professionals. So for checkups, but then as you go up that pyramid, you may need full term, or someone in your family or in your community may need full term, long-term care. And so being, knowing this information and having this resource can help you to even plan out for your aging parents and the elderly in your family, and being prepared to navigate what they need in their latter years. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my presentation. Let's see, I've got to find it. Okay, let me find it. Hold on. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Hold on, guys. I've got to find it. Oh, here it is. Okay. Ay, ay, ay. Here it is. All right, here we go. Okay. Okay, so self-care positively impacts one's well-being. Taking care of oneself can help reduce stress, anxiety, even depression, minimize those long-term extended periods of feeling sadness, or even, if you're dealing with diagnosed depression. Self-care being mindful of self-care, having self-care practices, being equipped with the knowledge and the resources can lead to better mental health outcomes. Okay. And then again, I spoke on this one. It can help you manage your illnesses, improve your overall quality of life, and feel better equipped to handle the challenges. Here are the pillars again. Here is the resource. And then I want to talk about the manifesto for self-care. So there is a manifesto, and again, this one comes from the International Self-Care Foundation, the resource I just showed you. So on the manifesto, there are 11 points. And point 1, so self-care is a practical, person-centered set of activities. And so, some people say that self-care is selfish. These are things that I have heard said about self-care. It's selfish. It is focused on the self. It is, it takes a lot of time. And you know what my answer to that is? It's okay if it's selfish, because you want to have optimum health so that you can have optimum performance for your family and your home, for your community. So all the organizations you're involved in your communities, right? Your church, synagogue, mosque, your library, you may be involved in this community here, you're involved, right? And then on your job in your organization, you want to have high optimum performance for your employer. And so if someone tries to make you feel guilty for prioritizing healthcare, you can, just know in yourself that you don't have to respond to them if you don't want. Just have a knowledge and a knowing in yourself that healthcare is important. And there's no shaming. That's really, to me, there is no shaming necessary when it comes to healthcare and self-care. Okay. So manifesto of self-care, point 1, self-care is a practical, person-centered set of activities that we should all be undertaking to maintain health, wellness, and well-being. That is point 1 on the manifesto. Point 2, self-care is a normal part of everyday life in which everyone engages consciously or unconsciously, irrespective of the circumstances. And I would encourage you, so in my experience, I have a mother who is now, she will be 82 years old this year. And my mother has muscular dystrophy, which is a degenerative muscular disease. And when I was a child, my mother had she had capacity where she could walk, drive, care for herself, care for us children, work a job, manage a home, drive a car. She was very independent, interdependent with my dad. But as she aged, now when I was a young girl, my mom told my siblings and myself that there will come a point in her life when she would not be able to do the things that we see her doing. My mom is at that point now. She's been at that point now for about the last 20 some odd years, where she is needing care, a lot of care. And so, you know, when you think of self-care, a part of it may include like sharing with your family, with your community, if you know, in the right context, with your employer. It may include sharing your need, your self-care need, so that they can have the capacity to bring support to you and be there for you. And so self-care is not selfish. And even if it is, okay, if it is because people say, well, you're prioritizing yourself, then that's okay for you to prioritize yourself. Okay, the benefits of having reduced stress, improved well-being, better nutrition, being mobile and able to move your body well, the ability to be able to have conversations with your family without arguing, to have engagement with your family members and those difficult conversations without arguing and exploding and escalating into frantic, you know, chaos. That's important. And that is a part of the self-care spectrum. Okay, so that was point one. Now, point two on the manifesto of self-care. Self-care is a normal part of everyday life in which everyone engages. I think I read this one. Consciously or unconsciously, irrespective of their circumstances. Yeah, I read this one because I gave you all the point of my mom. Okay, so that's point two. Point three, self-care is both a set of activities and a repetitive cycle of behaviors where you act, then you monitor, you recognize, and you evaluate, and then you act again. So it's a loop. It's an ongoing behavioral loop where you are constantly assessing your behaviors, right? So it doesn't stop. Self-care behaviors involve individual capability, opportunity, and motivation. And the thing about being a human being and not an android, we get burnout, we get tired, we have the learning curves and the learning loops where we learn something new, like we put down an old behavior that wasn't serving us anymore, like maybe overeating or overindulging in something. We lay that down and we take up a new behavior. But then because you're human and because of how the brain works and because of the emotional seat in the human person, you may experience a pull back to the old behavior because it served you. The old behavior served a purpose at one point. And so when you have that emotional need, you go back to that emotional safety blanket, which was that old behavior, and you engage in that for a while. And then you're like, oh man, it's not serving me. I put it down for a reason. You recognize. And then you try again. You say, I'm gonna lay it back down because it didn't, it comforted me for a little bit, but I see why I laid it down. So you lay it down again and you start over. So that's the loop. You act, you monitor, you recognize, you evaluate, and you act again. And monitoring may include measuring things, weighing things, using a calendar, scheduling things, activities, events, or whatever the thing, doctor visits, whatever, right? Okay, so that is number 3 on the manifesto. Self-care is both a set of activities and a repetitive cycle of behavior. Okay. Cycle or step 4.4, through self-care, people can be healthier and remain so into old age, managing minor ailments themselves. That makes me think of my great-grandmother, who she lived to 94 years old. My great-grandmother did not enjoy going to the doctor, so she doctored herself. And she did a pretty good job of it. There were things that she did, she needed medical care for, so that was handled. But overall, she saw herself through self-care, people can be healthier and remain so into old age, managing minor ailments themselves. So you can delay or even prevent the appearance of so-called lifestyle diseases, such as heart attacks, strokes, diabetes, and according to the ISF global.org, and many cancers. Now, I am an educator. I'm not a medical professional. I am an educator. That's what I am trained to do, and that's what I do. I educate people. So I'm bringing you the information. I'm presenting the information to you to inform you, to educate you. And then hopefully you will decide to take this information and review it and do a deeper dive and use what you're able to use right now, because it is a lot. It's a lot of information. Use what you can, save the rest for later, and always, revisit it at a later time if necessary. But that is point 4 on the manifesto. Okay. Okay, point 5, self-care does not mean no care, nor does it imply that people are simply left to look after themselves without external support. So you will see that on the self-care matrix that I had mentioned earlier. I should find it for you all. Okay, I'm going to try to go over there and find it, so be patient with me. Let's see. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back over here. Let's see if I can find it. Okay, hold on, guys. Thank you for your patience. I'm not finding it, you all. I saw it earlier today when I was looking on here, but I'm not finding it. Hi, Paula, welcome. Let's see. Okay, so you all, I'm trying to find it. I'm just going to take you over here with me as I try to find it, because I want you to see there's a pyramid, there's a self-care pyramid, and there's a self-care matrix, and there are the 7 pillars. So if you see all of them, you will know exactly what to do. you will know exactly how to navigate your family's self-care, your community, if you're a leader in the community, or if you even aspire to be someone teaching a class at your local library or in your church, synagogue, or mosque, you know, they will help you. These are tools that are very beneficial. I'm gonna click on this and see. No, I'm gonna click on one more, and then if I don't see it, then I'm just gonna go back to, no, okay. Oh, there it is, right here. Can you all see that? Okay. I don't know how to make it bigger. Wait. It's behind maybe I should minimize it. Okay, good. Okay, I hope you all can see, this is the pyramid, the self-care pyramid. So it says self-care is the foundation of healthcare, but is generally outside of the formal healthcare and social care systems, because you are the person, the individual is managing that, and they are taking charge and prioritizing their well-being. And then you have your primary care physician, your levels of primary care, the medicines you take, the visits, your annual visits or your biannual visits. And you all, this does include your dentistry as well. This is not just your teeth that are part of your body. So, and your vision and your hearing. Okay, so everything, every component. So your primary care, your secondary care, and your tertiary care. So, so that's the pyramid, but then there is a matrix that takes the pyramid and it breaks it down even more detailed about what goes on what is occurring on each level. So I'm just going to let you all navigate this on your own time so that you all can see, you know, what's all there. Okay, so let me go back to hold your horses. Let me go back to my presentation. Okie dokie, Smokey. Where is it? Okay, here it is. Okay. Okay, so the benefits. Now let's talk about the benefits of self. No, I'm not there yet. I'm still going through the manifesto. I'm going to go faster though for you all. Okay. I am at number 6. Self-care is equally relevant for disease prevention and for people with medical conditions. Okay. That is point 6 on the manifesto. Point 7, the primary beneficiary of self-care is the self-carer, but your other beneficiaries include family members and overstretched healthcare systems. And then I would even say that it includes your community resources and your employer, because your employer is providing you, my employer provides me like days that I can use or time that I can use, and then I try my best to use that well. I try to use it in ways that benefit me. I'm mindful in how I use it, but I do take care of myself with that time. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not saying don't use your time. You have the time, it's provided, it's for your use. Just be mindful, because using it comes with various consequences. And the benefit of us focusing on being well, then maybe we don't have to use the time for ourselves. We can use it for family members or others. Okay. Point 7. Point 8, self-care presents huge opportunities for all stakeholders, including healthy individuals and patients, governments, policymakers, healthcare professions, community organizations, NGOs, charities, and consumer organizations. So there are huge opportunities for all of these stakeholders to work together to build strong healthcare systems and plans. Self-care, here's point 9. Self-care is equally important in developed countries and in resource-poor settings, although the nature of the health challenges and priorities for self-care may vary considerably. So I am in a community that is a global community, and that includes people from all over the world and some in developing countries. And that was a question, well, the self-care, how does it look for developing countries and individuals in those countries? And so it may look different, but self-care can still be prioritized. It may look like having clean water, prioritizing the availability of clean water, prioritizing the availability of clean resources, cooking utensils, and so forth. So it may look different, but it's still self-care. Point 10, developing self-care requires systematic development of the evidence, theory, and practice. So here's where you have the science and the canon of evidence from research that supports what you're doing and why you're pursuing self-care and wellness for yourself, your community, and your organization. And the last point is there is a great opportunity and need for self-care promotion to articulate and promote the practice of self-care to healthy individuals, to patients, and to all stakeholders around the world. Because the objective is to promote consistent practices, uses, and a consistent narrative around the subject of self-care. Here are some strategies. So if you look at in schools, some of the strategies may look like trauma-informed strategies, like providing quiet places. Now, this is in schools. I teach in a public school. And so even though my school may not do this across the board, some of my colleagues talk about how their schools implement these practices. In many of the self-care practices, they parallel with the trauma-informed practices, like that mindfulness and that quiet time and that reflection piece, where you are allowed to go to a designated quiet place with maybe low lighting, maybe some aromatherapy, and a journal or a form to fill out. And you sit there and you reflect on your behaviors, your actions. There are some industries, some organizations where they have quiet prayer rooms, quiet meditation rooms, where you can go and quietly pray, or you can center yourself, okay? Some organizations offer like professional development opportunities where you can take classes where you're stretching your body. You're just mindfully stretching and allowing yourself that opportunity to like be quiet and reflective and moving your body in a way that is helpful and you know, like stretching. I actually, on my job in my district in the fall, we did have a session where we were stretching, and that session made an impact on me because, you know, they said, you can stand, you can come down here on the floor and do the full body stretches, or you can just stay seated and do the modified stretchings. And I thought, well, I'm just going to stay seated and do the modified stretchings. And it was very, very helpful. I didn't even think it was going to have that payoff, but it did. Some schools even have these things set up during recess so that students who are troubled, stressed, upset, they can go to these quiet spaces and engage and gain, regain composure and improve overall well-being. And so I think as a part of self-care, we can inform our employers and our community groups about these actions that they can take, and they can incorporate them like on a consistent basis. Like, hey, let's have a mindfulness class, or we meet every Monday at lunchtime and we pray, or we meet every Monday at a certain time and we plan menus or something. We're being mindful about how we are living our lives and how we are attending to our self-care. We may walk, we may do some sort of exercise. I was watching a video the other day in a shopping mall, and I don't know what country this was in. It may have been in the United States, but the people, most of them looked elderly, like 60 and above in age, but they were all like in rows, and they were moving according to some kind of routine, moving their arms and their bodies swaying and their legs, and they were in unison, right? And so you could tell they had been doing this for a while because everybody had the motions down and they were in unison. And I couldn't tell if there was a leader. I didn't see a leader. Who's leading this group? And so these are things that we can do with encouraging, like being leaders, self-care leaders. We can either do the class, teach the class, we can inform others in leadership positions and educate them, and then help them if they want to incorporate some kind of change. We can either help them do that, or let them do it, or encourage them to do it, or do it ourselves. Okay, classes on eating healthy, getting enough sleep, spending time with loved ones, so many classes on crocheting and knitting, those classes where you're using your small, what do they call those? Your manual dexterity, but your small muscle groups. There's a name that I learned way back in undergrad. I can't right now, is evading me, but those, say that again. Fine motor skills. Yeah, your fine motor skill. So there are activities that you can do, and that's very calming when you're like knitting or crocheting or maybe even painting, is calming. And all of these benefit your wellness, and all of them are a component of self-care. Okay, let's see what else I have on here. We talked about attending to your medical needs, but I would even say, like, so I'm kind of on the nerdy side, you all. I really enjoy learning. And I used to, back home, I'm from St. Louis. So when I say back home, I mean in St. Louis. So I would attend conferences or these meetings at the public library, at the public art museum, these lectures. I would just go to those things because I had the time. My daughters had just, they were young adults. They had all, I had empty nest syndrome going on. And then my husband had passed away. So I was a young widow, a new widow. And so I busied myself by attending lectures and attending these conferences. And I just enjoyed going there, learning and listening, and then hearing and watching the people and hearing people's ideas. And so a part of that, it informs you and it helps to broaden your scope of understanding. For me, at least it did. And so it helped me to feel more of a part of a community larger than myself, because I was going through a grieving process back then. And so, you know, these are things that we can do to help us to grow and to not be stagnant, and so that we can navigate those sharp edges in life and those tough points and dark spots in life. Okay. And so understanding self-care literature, understanding literature that enhances our life, reading, watching documentaries, just listening to people who are experts, listening to their expertise, and just, you know, taking it in. All of these things can benefit us. Self-care strategies. Okay, let's look at some of these. I think I touched on some, but let me see. I think I did. Oh, I didn't talk a lot about setting boundaries, but so setting boundaries is a part. Well, I talked about having difficult conversations. And that's a skill that you can learn. You can learn. There's a full body of research and resources available on having difficult conversations. Just Google it. And if you Google having difficult conversations, there's a whole body of science-based research and activities. Okay. And they help you to have various types of challenging conversations, and the resources teach you how to navigate those. Like, for instance, one of the tips I gleaned was this one. When someone disrespects you and you know it's a blatant disrespect, stay quiet. Just stay quiet, because your silence is enough. It's letting them know that that's a boundary. Don't cross that. So there's so much to learn regarding self-care, and setting boundaries, having difficult conversations will help you to lead by example, because in your family, when your family sees you changing, they may challenge you at first, but then as you gain more mastery over your new skills, you won't be triggered to like react or respond to them in an old way. You'll respond as a leader. And that's really where you're headed. The whole point of incorporating the self-care regimen is so that you can now lead your family into wellness. And so in doing that, you're promoting a culture of self-care in your family, in your church, in your synagogue, in your mosque, in your group, your community group, even on your job. Let's see, did we talk about this? Yeah, I think we did, because self-care does help you to be well rested or better rested for more times than not. Like today, I looked at myself and I was like, you don't look well rested. And really, I didn't. I woke up very early today for some reason. Maybe I was a little excited about this presentation. I don't know, but I woke up early. I did some work, and then I said, just go back to sleep. So I slept for about an hour, about 90 minutes, and then started my day. So when you prioritize self-care, it does help you to be able to handle the demands of running your business or your profession and so forth. And then I've shared a lot of resources, especially my favorite, the isfglobal.org. And then I did encourage you all to look at navigating difficult conversations. I'm going to have to look back in my records, like my little files, because there was one resource. I did a series on LinkedIn, you all. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm Lynn Daniel, PhD, EDS on LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn and go through my posts, and you'll see I did a series on having difficult conversations as a part of your self-care regimen. And I think that was around November of last year, maybe even October, November. And then that is where you're going to see the bulk of that resource that I just remembered. A lot of that is there, just a wealth of information. Okay. Yep, talked about that. I talked about Self-Care Foundation, and here's my call to action, you all, is take action by prioritizing self-care for you and your family, for your community. And if you want to take it the next step, even for your employer, because you can take your expertise to them and then help your colleagues be well and get, have higher degrees of wellness. Here are the books that I wrote. So my first book is Trash Can, Stop Being a Receptacle for Toxic People's Waste. This is my first commercial book. And I had just finished my PhD, and I was feeling like a balled up piece of paper thrown in the trash. Literally, guys, I felt crushed. And so and then COVID had, what was going on there with the lockdowns and with school being remote, and then going back on campus and hearing the stories from my colleagues about what their students were going through, and not just locally, I mean, across the United States, teachers were just really, traumatized. So I wrote the first book based on that. And then I wrote You Are Not Garbage, how to overcome, no, what's the subtitle? Why you need to overcome adverse childhood experiences and how to do it. That is about my experience as my whole life, some adverse childhood experiences that I encountered and how I learned that that's what they were. And now in retrospect, what I did and if what I did was reasonable or not. And so I do encourage you to read those books. They are inexpensive on Amazon. And so also you can find me on LinkedIn. My phone number is there if you want to reach out to me and maybe have me come speak to your organization or your employer, your colleagues. You can reach me at that phone number. And then you can reach me at lynnordaniel@gmail.com. I do have a business email. I think I don't use it that often. It's brand new. So I don't want to give it to you and give it to you wrong. So use the Gmail one. And then if, as we talk, I'll give you the brand new one. All right. So thank you all. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your time. I hope I didn't go too long. I can get windy at times. I hope I didn't go too long.
No, we appreciate you sharing with us today, Lynn. Does anyone have any questions for Lynn? We appreciate all the resources too.
This is Margaret. Hi.
Hi, Margaret.
Hello, Lynn. I don't have any questions. I just want to share with you my deepest condolences for the loss of your husband. And I am so glad to see that you are an overcomer. And thank you for your presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. Anybody else have anything for Lynn or for the group before we wrap up for today?
I have a question,
Yeah.
Paula. Thank you again for your time and expertise today. And I'm a widow too, so I'm wishing you the best and on your journey. But your books, I just put a comment there. I like that both of them have a trash can on the cover. But I was wondering, with children, because of the adverse childhood experiences, and a lot of that's what's impacting children in the classroom and stuff. Are there any types of self-care stuff that you do with children, not maybe talking to them about that, but to kind of help with that childhood trauma that you see in the classroom?
Good question. So I would refer people to what is already available. So if you look at trauma-informed practices like the circles, conversation circles, and the calming techniques, I think a lot of those practices are very transferable for students, for schools. And I think more schools should start looking at those and incorporating those practices, not just putting it on the teacher to implement those in their classroom independently, but to take a systemic approach, and schools, organizations, maybe even district-wide, look at those transformative practices, trauma-informed practices, and incorporate those restorative justice practices. They are all very similar. And so I think that's what I encourage districts or organizations to do.
I would agree with you. I've worked with nonprofits and here in Arizona and in Louisiana, and a lot of times rural, BIPOC communities. But I also incorporate like self-worth, self-love topics, because if you come from, a very traumatic childhood, you sometimes you don't even know your worth and that you're worthy of all this goodness and stuff. So, but I really I agree with you, and I appreciate your talk today. Thank you very much.
You. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you as well.
All right. Well, thank you again, Lynn. We really do appreciate your time, the resources, and the share. It's helpful for us to have some tangible items to take back and reference. I think as many of us try to kind of digest what you shared today and kind of rethink about our own self-care and the practices we have, or what areas we could really probably be a little bit more real and take a little more time to invest into. So it was really, really helpful.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Of course.
So glad to see so many people here today. So thank you all for your time.
So with that,
Thank you.
thank you. Next month, we will have Dr. Wolf presenting. So we'll get some information out on her topic. In the meantime, we just encourage everyone to continue to extend an invite for those who we feel might be of benefit for attending and participating in the group. And we will see everybody in what will already be April of this year. So thanks again, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your evening and week.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye, Betty.
Thank you. This was good. And I look forward to next month.
Yes, thank you for getting me connected.